Hi all, this is Deepthi. Today me and my team member Satya are going to give a presentation regarding the IEEE paper titled Seesoft, a tool for visualizing line-oriented software statistics by Stephen G. et al. Coming to authors and journal, Stephen G. He is a leading academic information visualization researcher. He also served as a deputy director National Center for Data Mining at the University of Illinois in Chicago. Joseph L. Stephen, he served as one of the members in the AT&T Bell Laboratories. Eric E. Sumner, he served as a president for IEEE and received the IEEE Alexander Graham Bell Medal. This paper has citations of 979. Coming to research question, in software engineering, understanding the data collected at the source code line level of detail will be a very challenging task, such as which programmer wrote each line and how frequently each line has been changed or updated, and how it fixes a bug or it adds new functionality. Like it will be hard to know this type of details for all the large software projects which have millions of code. So this paper revolves around how to analyze and visualize the huge large statistical data in complex software systems. Coming to motivation, software visualization can be used as a tool and technique to explore and analyze the software system information. Tools for software visualization might be used to visualize source code and quality defects during the software development process and maintenance activities. Here, the main aim is to analyze the line oriented data using the visualization software tool named Seesoft, like which is used to analyze more than 50,000 lines of code at a time by mapping each line of code into a thin row. The main aspects of Seesoft are reduced representation, coloring by statistic, direct manipulation, and the capability to read actual code. Here the files are displayed as columns where lines are displayed as thin rows, resulting in a simplified representation. Here the statistic related with a line of code that each row represents determines the color of each row. The color depicts here the age of the code and what are the new lines added. Coming to software visualization tool Seesoft, here the initial presentation must be informative and clear in order for this strategy to work, because our display resembles a text listing. When viewed from a distance, programmers or developers can easily distinguish the files and lines of code there. Here the user manipulates the display by using direct manipulation techniques to find out the interesting patterns. Users can open code reading windows in our system which show the actual code for the rows beneath the magnifying boxes which monitor the mouse movement. This method works effectively since it gives the user an overview of the statistic while also allowing them to read the interesting parts of the actual code. Here we can display around 900 lines of code per column on a high resolution monitor. When a file has more than 900 lines, it wraps and is shown in numerous columns. For easy identification, each file's name is written above it as shown in the figure. The indentation and length of each line of code are clearly displayed in the row representation. Each line's color corresponds to a line-oriented statistic. A mouse-sensitive color scale is located on the left side of the Seesoft display, as shown. Each color on the scale reflects a different statistic value for each line of the code, like it can be assessed age, programmer, feature, type of line, and number of times the line was performed in a recent session. Seesoft may print the current code line as well as the statistic value at the bottom of the screen. Here the associated color is activated and the corresponding code lines are turned on when the user activates a value by placing the cursor over it. If the user moves the mouse around the screen, it will be activated, which activates all the lines within that file. The left mouse button makes the activation permanent while the middle mouse button deactivates previously activated items. This type of permanent is called brushing. Each reading window's border color corresponds to the color of its accompanying magnifying box. Coming to analysis of sample source code using Seesoft, here we can get to know the heavily changed set of files and where the new functionalities have been added by creating new functions. Here we get the adding modification request whether the change corrected a bug or introduced a new functionality. The version, the feature number, the user ID of the developer, adding each line and the developer's name from the version control system for each line. Also, we can get to know the number of developers that has touched the files, and files touched by many developers will have more bugs here. We also get to know where the code has been recently been altered and that recent modification requests have resulted in fewer lines of code than previous modification requests.
Visualization techniques employed by Seesoft treats each line of a source code as an entity of an database, and the statistics related to each entity is displayed whenever the user interacts with the Seesoft tool. The user interface of Seesoft employs high interaction graphics, which can display up to 50,000 lines of code and 900 lines of code per each column. The user can easily interact with the Seesoft tool using mouse. The Seesoft has a no point click delay, which helps user to highly efficiently interact with the Seesoft tool. The screen refresh time is very less, and whenever the user clicks on a column, the Seesoft activates the line of code which resolves the database query, and it returns different parameters about that code, such as who has written that code, when was it last modified, does it has any bug fixes or any additional functionality added with that code, and many other parameters like that. Following screenshot shows the graphical user interface of Seesoft. This bar represents the rainbow colors like which indicate most recently changed files and most actively changed files, where the red indicates like the files which are most actively changed, whereas the colors towards blue indicate the files which are not actively changed and like the files which are stable from long period. Whenever these are the file names of the files present in the source code repository. Whenever a file length goes over 900 lines, it is displayed as two column, and whenever the user clicks on the column of this bar, the Csoft has a high user interface window which pops out, and it will show the lines of code that are affected with that column. Here, red indicates the most recently updated column, and it also returns many metadata which are shown towards the right of the screen. It has the details like who has written the line of code and how many lines of code, and here does it has any bug fixes and all. It also shows the color. Like in Csoft, the color is an important thing because most of the visualization is dependent on the color codes, and it also shows the total lines of code which are affected with which, like whenever the user clicks red, it will shows the total number of files which are most recently updated, and this graphical interface keeps on updating based on the clicks the user do. Like the applications of Csoft tool, as Csoft can display up to 50,000 lines of code in a single user interface. The project managers can highly go through the source code files, and they can easily verify whether the project was on time or not, and they can track the productivity of a developer. And it also helps in new developer training because the new developer can directly go and see the files which he need to work on, and it also helps in the software analysis and code coverage analysis. We can clearly see the bug fixes that are occurred due to a single line of code in Csoft application, which helps teams to easily analyze the impact caused due to a line of code, and they can increase their performance based on the previous versions. And it also helps to optimize the code execution. Following the real-time experiences of Csoft tool, as we have seen in the previous slide, it helps the new developers to become familiar with the source code in a very less time, and also the managers and developers can easily track the project status and impacts caused due to a developer. And Csoft is also used as a legacy tool. It can help us to do code coverage analysis and impact analysis, which helps the product owners to improve their efficiency. To the implementation of Seesoft tool, at present Seesoft can only run on Silicon graphics, and it is not supported by Windows. And using a 19-inch monitor, we can see up to 50,000 lines of code, and we can easily read up to 20,000 lines of code. And 50,000 lines of code means 20 columns. And we also have seen about the high interaction graphics of Seesoft. We can easily manipulate and monitor the source code at a single user interface. We can simply click on a column and it redirects us into a window which contains all the metadata and source code of that file. The main idea behind the Seesoft tool is to view the statistical analysis at a line level and analyze the source code at a line level and visualize the line level analytics of a source code repository. Seesoft also helps us to reduce the representation. We have seen that Seesoft can represent or visualize up to 50,000 lines of code in a single interface, and it also returns many metadata about each line of code. And there are many manipulation techniques. The user can easily monitor the source code at a single place, and he can move using the mouse clicks. And we have also seen about no delay mouse click technique which Seesoft employs. This helps developers to work collaboratively and identify interesting patterns on the source code. Coming to ending remarks, Seesoft currently runs only on Silicon Graphics Iris workstations, and it is not supported in Windows and Linux based workstations. Also, we see that Seesoft cannot display more than 50,000 lines of code in its user interface. And also the developers of Seesoft, as mentioned, they are continuously working on it to improve the number of lines it can display. And we have seen the major problem, which is the number of columns displayed in the Seesoft. Whenever the length of a file goes behind 900 lines of code, the columns will become more narrow and they will be split into multiple columns, which may not be a greater visualization technique. Also, we didn't find any proper documentation about Seesoft tool while we are preparing for this presentation. These were the ending remarks.